Welcome back to It Tastes Like Burning. This Matt.
This Jesse.
And as per the usual, I'm going to give you our podcast notes. You can always find us at ittasteslikeburningcast at gmail.com, Twitter at itlbcast. We're on the subreddit at itlbcast. And if you're feeling real incentivized, you can always give us a lick there on Patreon. We have stickers. And you can find us at It Tastes Like Burning on Patreon. Jesse, what do you have for us today?
So we had a guy listener reach out to us in the last week or two and just wanting to talk about recruiting, and that's a topic that we're on here talking about a lot. And he reached out and said, "Hey, you guys mentioned that a college could be beneficial. How in the world is a college beneficial?" And that was kind of the gist of the question. And while it's not directly related to us, we've watched this program for several years now in another Texas city, and we have a little bit of insight in just the research we've done on it, and wish that we had the opportunity to do something like this. So, I'd like to introduce Mike. Mike's coming to us via the internet, so excuse any poor audio, but we're definitely glad to have him. So, take it away, Mike. Let's hear a little bit about you.
So my name is Mike. I'm a newly appointed assistant chief for a small town fire department in Kentucky. I've been in the fire service for 18 years and starting my 14th year with the department I'm currently at. I started right out of high school, 3 months after I graduated, and I've been full-time, part-time, volunteer. Worked for NASCAR for a couple seasons and spent some time as an industrial fireman. And the fire service just kind of never let go of me. And now I'm newly promoted in a chief's position with a recruiting program I'd like to improve upon. So here we are.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's a good deal. So what kind of stuff do you guys currently do for recruiting?
So I would describe our current recruiting stuff as being pretty passive. We push it pretty heavily on the department's social media on Facebook, and we get some advertisement with a city newsletter that goes out every month. But really outside of that and word of mouth of our members is really kind of the extent of recruiting that happens. I feel like we take more of a backseat approach of letting people come to us, and I would much rather see an initiative and a program where we're seeking out individuals rather than waiting for them to come to us. So we probably have we have a population of the city of about 6,200, and we cover our primary response district is about just a little over 4 square miles. But I would say our average age is probably mid to late 20s, and we probably have a roster of about 22 people.
So that's actually doing pretty good.
Yeah, and what would you say, like your dream number? I mean, obviously you'd like to have 500, but
right.
How many would you say is a number on your roster that make you feel real comfortable?
Conversations that I've had with our training officer is we would really like to see us be around 35.
Okay.
I think that's a fair ask.
Yeah.
Sitting in the lower to mid 20s and looking to get to the mid 30s, that's certainly doable. You know, and the fact that you got a goal and you got a direction there, that makes things way easier to get off into.
Right.
Now, Mike, one thing that we've had, I don't want to say spectacular luck with, but I want to say very consistent luck with, is When you say you've done some social media work, what are you calling social media?
So we run a pretty active department Facebook page. We limit who all's allowed on there, um, because some of them would be a little wild with it. But we uh, we try to post on there at least a couple times a week,
Okay.
between those of us that can post. So we're frequently posting, kind of reviews of training nights and significant responses we make, and then at the end of every year, we always do a yearly recap and share our total run numbers, broken down by fire, EMS, technical rescue. So we try to be pretty active on there, and there's been some discussion back and forth about an actual website, but there's some reservations about who would manage it and who would manage it best to keep it updated.
Right. Now, uh, this is strictly speaking from our perspective. Um, we've had the classic who's going to handle the website. We've built it ourselves. It's fallen apart, not maintained for years. Someone else picks up the torch, rinse and repeat over and over. And on this most recent expedition, what we did is we committed pretty hard to a completely outside source. Now, we get a little bit of a cheating woodchuck advantage because the source is fire department friendly. But this particular individual, they manage and maintain the website for us. It's hands off for us. The big
Okay.
thing that we did when we built the website is, and this is something that me and Jesse have talked about a lot, not necessarily on the podcast per se, but specifically to us. When you build that website, if you guys ever step off on that, I do encourage you actually spending the sock full of nickels on getting someone else to completely take care of it. And then the follow up on that, what do you really want from the website? Is it to highlight the membership? Is it to highlight how many trucks and how many calls you make? Or is it a recruiting website? Because not all of those are the same. And
Right.
when we get off of this podcast, what I'll do is I'll send you our website and you kind of look through it and notice that our website literally has nothing to do with highlighting the membership. Every single page you click on takes you to the application. It's a recruiting website. That's the sole purpose of it. Now, the one thing I want to compound and add to this is we have a really pretty solid Facebook following. Where did it get from? The truth is that we built it by posting, particularly on the larger in Texas, the wildland fires is what we highlighted. And you throw a handful of really large Texas wildland fires on there and get some good action photos on there. Shoot, we would have anywhere between 2 and 5,000 not memberships, but likes and followers off of one fire. So that's how we built our page. The thing I would add to that is that we got the pictures out sooner than later. Get them out
Right.
there. Be the first ones out. Because the fact of the matter is that we are in a social media society. So the first one out of the door is the one that's going to get the most attention. And we use social media as our main messaging service, but our website's always tagged to it. So
Okay.
you have a real long wildland post. The firefighters did X, Y, and Z. We protected X. We did Y. And if you're interested in joining, go to our website. That's a big thing we did.
Yeah, now since that website launched, we've probably processed. It's been up what, a year and a few months, somewhere in that neighborhood.
I think it was January of 22.
Yeah, we probably processed 150 applications through
Something
that.
like that.
Oh,
And
wow.
now, granted, 3/4 of them are going to the garbage before you get past a background or anything like that. So
Right.
that you're getting a lot of volume. We've probably voted on 25 or 30 of that 150, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Somewhere in there.
And the attrition rate's pretty high on some of that stuff because if you go out personally and you find somebody that's Billy Bob's brother or whoever that knows somebody in the department, they're more apt to try to make it work, even if it's hard and there's a little bit of struggle with it. Sometimes the people off the street aren't necessarily going to invest the time. But for us, it's just a numbers deal, right? We can pump those people into the system, and in 6 months we either have a firefighter or they're gone. Basically, is how that works.
Right.
And to kind of give you an idea of what our analytics look like, we're a town between 10 and 15,000 people, but we have 20 to 25,000 followers on Facebook. So our Facebook followers is 2.5 times to 1.5 times of what our town's population is. And I assure you that didn't happen overnight.
Right.
That took a while to build it. Our assistant chief, he did a great job of being really active on Facebook for about 2.5 years. And on the end of that 2.5 years, it paid off. Where he doesn't necessarily have to just continually pound the keyboard to be able to continue to expand followers at this point. The big thing is that we're just quick to getting a post out. And again, it's kind of, what do you want that web page to do? And for us, it was a recruiting tool. The web page had no purpose other than for recruitment, and basically every single part of that web page sends you and directs you right back to the application. That is the intent of it. So that's kind of something you can kind of take back to your department and have that conversation of what is the purpose of the web page. Do you want a department calendar on there? Do you want a community events notification on there? Do you want to tell everyone about your trucks and the split shift and how many gears it has? Or are you just trying to get people on your department?
Right.
That's kind of sounds like a funky thing to think about, but what do you want from that web page? The very last thing I can say to this is, if this will sound weird when I say it this way, if you guys were social media experts and web page developers, you'd have 35 applicants every week. The fact of the matter is you're not. So if
Right.
you do step out there and you do hire someone, listen to them. Fact of the matter is Johnny Dinosaur and his 300-year-old Nokia phone probably shouldn't have an opinion on exactly how the web page should be built.
Right.
Listen to the professional if you go hire one.
Yeah,
That's why you're literally paying the money.
Yeah, that was the big thing, that when we did that it was hire the pro, listen to the pro, and there was a handful of us that had some marketing experience from business backgrounds and stuff like that, but not to the extent that we were gonna, we managed a process or hired a company.
Right.
Not that we built and maintained websites, and even if we had a member that was that marketing guru and they offered to do it, I would still pay them, because you don't want the discounted deal. You don't want the halfway done bottom basement price program.
Right.
You want that to stand out in your arena, because the reality is you're competing for clicks just like everybody else, and if you can get to the top of that pile, it helps you get more clicks. So
Yeah. Cost wise, let me think here. I'm kind of digging in the old brain basement
I
here.
think it was about $3,500 to get it rocking.
Yeah, the first round was just a hair over 2,000, or sorry, just a hair under 2,000. The second round, God, I don't even know if it was 1,000. And then the third round is so we sat down with the website developer and kind of had her build how do you do a marketing and advertising campaign. That's what that other I'll make up a number and call it $750 was for. So she could advertise on Facebook, so she could advertise in other places, and she tracked the analytics on it. And I can tell you, for that $750 that we spent, that generated 12 members. That's what that number came out to be. So when you look at it from dollars to donuts perspective, man, I would argue that's a pretty cheap price to pay for 12 people to walk in the door. Really. And we've got another $1,500 coming out right now. That's the second round of her advertising campaign. What is she doing? I honestly don't know. I can tell you that. The fact of the matter is that, again, I'm not the marketing guru. I'm not the advertising guru. She showed results. I have no problem giving her another $1,500, even if it generates 5 people. You kidding me? $300 to get people walk in the door? Deal. I'm sold. So that's kind of a unique way to look at that and be able to kind of run with that. And it sounds like you've actually done the hard part in having a Facebook presence. Do you guys do anything with like Instagram or any of that other stuff?
We don't. It's something I've been thinking about here lately. If it would be worth the time and effort to start an Instagram as well. But currently we do not.
Okay. I can understand the hesitancy on that because the fact of the matter is that me and Jesse, and I don't mean to speak for yourself, but we're not all Instagram models, and we don't really understand how the social media socialite and popularity contest works. But it sure does seem like that our young guys think they know how to do it. And probably the thing I'd add here is if you have a young guy that you know's real active on that, don't necessarily hesitate to drag them in on it and get them pulled in. The great argument is that, well, you never know what they're going to post. Well, yeah, that's true. Unless you tell them what they should post or have them run it by you before they post it.
Well, and oddly enough, this is probably going to make me sound more crazy for not doing Instagram. Um, I I worked in the HVAC. Well, and I still work somewhat in the HVAC industry, but I was in the field for a long time, and I had a HVAC Instagram page that I grew to 20,000 plus followers, and worked with companies to have sponsorships and things like that. So I'm very familiar and aware of how Instagram works, and I'm just not sure why I haven't pulled the trigger for the fire department.
Yeah, and it's a time sink.
Yeah.
It is.
I'm an HVAC guy myself. I'm a master electrician and an HVAC contractor, both. So that's my business that pays the bills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, and we'll kind of get to the real meat of this conversation here in another few seconds, but I just, the old adage, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And,
Right.
The fact of the matter is that every single community is going to be different. And, a good example of this is for us, we sit in an area that's a retirement community. And when I say we're a touch heavy on the geriatric population, that's the understatement of the century. So trying to figure out how to get someone younger than the age of a fossil on the department becomes a challenge. Now, with that said, I'd say the average age of our department's probably 27 to 32, which I'm happy with. Because when I first joined, I was the third youngest guy, and then the next oldest, walked Moses' dog. We were an older community and an older department. And each and every organization out there is going to kind of have their own niche market that they're trying to recruit from. And not what works for us or what works for you there in the Southeast may not be the same as in Oregon or Pennsylvania. But
Right.
the fact of the matter is that in my opinion, you just got to be willing to try different things and kind of see what comes down the pike.
Yeah, and realize that some of those things are just not going to work. You're going to fail and fall down on some of that stuff, but that's just part of learning and growing. I started out in the fire service in '99, and about a year into it, and I'm like, hey, why don't we do a fundraiser? And everybody in the department told me that doesn't work. We can't do that. It won't make any money. And I'm like, went along for 6 or 8 months, and I was like, why don't y'all just let me try and see what happens? And did a little fundraising deal and made $7,000-8,000 in a day's worth of work, and then they kind of turned around and said, wait a minute, that worked, or it worked well enough.
Right.
And you just kind of got to break from some of those norms. I know that we talk about the sign on the truck and the sign on the front of the station just doesn't do it anymore. Most people are oblivious when they're driving down the road anyway. That's why they wreck into each other all the time.
Yeah, it's just the fact of the matter is for us, the one shot approach isn't going to work.
Right.
And, it's the classic, give a man a fish or teach him how to fish. And for us, well, it's teach a man how to throw 13 lines out there and a drift net and a stick of dynamite and go ahead and get some jumper cables and a battery ready. Sooner or later, you're going to have a bite. And I think for us, that's kind of like our big thing that we push is we do the community PR, we do a little bit of the community politics, a little bit of the community awareness and development, newspapers, social media. We do. And at the end of the day, I would argue your ability to just get the word out. Do people know you're volunteer? And do they know that you're actually needing volunteers? For our case, it's a huge problem. If you surveyed 5,000 people in our town, I'd be shocked if you got 30 that knew we were volunteer. And again, we're a 10 to a 15,000 person department with 60 plus members. So the numbers I gave you don't jive off of that.
Right.
But it's just your ability to communicate is probably one of the biggest factors. And then at the end of the day, who are you trying to communicate to? Don't get me wrong. That classic middle-aged man, late middle-aged, or even freshly retired is going to communicate completely different from a 20 or 18-year-old. So that's where casting the multiple nets comes in. Being able to figure out who you're trying to grab. And, just going off of your numbers, when you said that, you've got, sounds like you're pretty much a little bit on the younger side.
Yeah.
And kudos to you. That's a fantastic achievement, so maybe you're trying to grab the middle-aged men. That's Facebook. That's where they're going to be at. And realistically, who you're talking to is their wives. If you're trying to get them 20-year-olds, that's back to Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah.
So know your market. One of the big reasons, Mike, that you message us is, and I think this is something real interesting to talk about, is that you guys have a potential of maybe tapping into a resource that maybe a lot of communities don't have access to. Tell me a little bit about your college in your area.
So I believe they usually bring in 3 to 4,000 students a year. They're a pretty major religious based institution, and we've had some pushback in the past within the department about trying to recruit purely from, or trying to put any kind of focus there because there are some extra restrictions that are placed on the student body that are not typically placed on college students. But with that being said, over the years we have recruited, a few here and there, and one of which is still with us and serves as one of our lieutenants. And of course we've had some duds, and but my argument in the conversation is we've had duds straight from the community as well.
Sure.
So the numbers, making that argument, the numbers don't stack up to each other on a reason not to focus there. So we over the years we've begun to kind of win that battle on the pushback to the point where a move in was actually this week for the students, and they have a community or like a job event at the beginning of every year where they set up tables, and we're in the process of getting in touch with the lady in charge of that so that we can get up there and get a table put up and get in front of students. And the training officer approached me earlier this week about trying to establish some kind of a reoccurring partnership with the college, and we don't know exactly what that would consist of yet. We have a meeting later this week where we're going to try to hammer out some of those details, but it's an interesting struggle between some of our own people and what I feel like is a gold mine of applicants, but that contact has to be made with them in some way, shape, or form.
Right. So there's actually two departments that I know that run college programs here in Texas. And before I talk about them, I'm going to mention very specifically a school that almost everyone in the United States is very familiar with. It's Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State is a volunteer fire department. Happy Valley has a volunteer fire department that serves the community and the college. Now, Happy Valley during the summertime has a population of 10 to 15,000, and when the students are in town, it's around 150,000. So they have, and I can't speak too directly about how that operation works there at Penn State. My point is that you can have a gigantic population served by college students. Okay.
Right.
Now, here in Texas, there's a department down south in the valley, which is on the Rio Grande. They have a pretty extensive volunteer fire department. It's probably one of the larger in the state. And they have a large college student segment that volunteers with the department. So how do they do that? They have dorm rooms. And what they offer is dorm rooms to the students. And in turn, they have to make fire calls. So that's the ultimate trade-off there. Now, the other school that I know of town that I know of that works with the college is due south of us. And the way they work is that they have kind of a scholarship program that pays for housing. So the way this works is we'll just pretend that, the requirements are 20 hours of training per semester, and I'm going to make up a number and say 50 calls. As long as those students make their training requirements and they make the call requirements, they get their housing reimbursed to them.
Okay.
Okay. So the two departments is one basically pays for rent and the other one provides housing at the fire stations. Do you guys have, for lack of better words, the real estate to even try and consider something like, let's just say you did it and moved in some fifth wheel RVs, let's say 3 of them, so 3 students, whatever the number is, it doesn't matter. Do you even have the free real estate to look at something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could.
Okay. And then the other part of that is do you happen to have any apartments that are close to you?
We do. We have, yeah, I mean, and the college housing itself is actually spread out all over town. And
Okay.
we have a couple apartment complexes and things like that as well.
Yeah, and that's an easy way to do it. Is if you can rent an apartment close to the station, you can stick, you know, if it's a couple bunk beds in each room, 3-bedroom apartment, you could have 6 people in a program like that for uh, really not a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And especially, there there's some protection for the college because there's some, I guess, guidance. There's some adults around, right? There's
Right.
there's yourself. There's a chief. There's some people that are going to hold them accountable for not being morons. But on the other end of that, you've got to have the training program to get them to the point to responding quick. And
Right.
do you guys have that in place, or?
Yeah. Our training program is pretty good. For our new hires, we take them and we'll put together a class, and it'll typically last. I think it's about 6 months. It's one night a week, one weekend a month, and then of course they have assignments and reading and stuff on their off nights. And by the time they finish that class, they earn a Kentucky what's called the 150, which is a certified volunteer for the state. And we allow them to start making runs about halfway through that recruit class. And we found over the years that by doing that, we keep guys, entertained and fired up, and it keeps them on the hook, and they finish class, and we have a lot better turnout that way. But yeah, we have a program that certifies them by the time they're done with it.
Yeah, and we do a similar thing. Ours happens. We run two academies a year. It's
Okay.
about it's 12 or 14 weeks. It grows all the time, right? It never shrinks, but it's all online and then Saturdays. So
Oh,
we get
okay.
them for like 14 Saturdays, and on the back end of that, they've got their firefighter 1, 2, hazmat awareness and ops, and so it's getting them to a level they're certified. Uh, the gears in my head are just turning because you could take incoming freshmen into that school, and you could tell them, hey, this is a way that your sophomore, junior, senior year, you could offset some cost of your housing. But what we need out of you your freshman year is to show up and get trained and be at trainings and come to department functions and and do that side of it, and realize that we're only going to get you for half the year because you're going to go home in the summer. But
Right.
that's all right. Most of them are going to come back. They're not going to bail on college. So you're gonna get them back. And what's the worst thing that happens if they leave? You made a volunteer fireman for some other department somewhere else.
Right.
You know, and in this day and age, everybody needs people. So that's something that for you, me, and everybody else, it's stuck with us for the last 20 plus years, and it'll do the same in most of those guys or gals. Uh, because you're not necessarily limited on that, but uh, that's where the gears in my head are going. That like you bring them in that freshman year, and you get them to commit to working on this training stuff, and then maybe they do some stuff over the summer back where they're from. Maybe they get involved with a department there. They come back in, and then that sophomore year, you've got somebody that's trained to a level where you can have them responding. You can use them on a scene. They're going to be safe enough, and then Katie bar the door. You got 3 years of a great asset there, and then the worst thing that happens when they graduate is you're sending them down the road to another department somewhere, or
Right.
they stick around and they may stay with you. I mean, you said that there was a seminary there, and if they go to the seminary, I mean, you got them for a couple more years at that point.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that to me, that's a win-win kind of situation that I can see that working real well.
Right. Yeah.
There's hurdles and there's stuff that you're going to have to figure out, but man, if you can get a deal with the college, and I don't know all the particulars about how you guys are funded and all that, but a lot of those colleges kick in to the cities, or there's some money there for emergency services. They're not just free gratis to those schools, and that's a way that they might could lower their burden on some of that. That's a way that they could show that they support the community as a whole. Let them pick up the tab for the housing to be part of your program.
Right. Yeah. And one of the kind of interesting problems that not only us at the department, actually more so the city faces is because they are a religious based institution and the separation of church and state, they they don't pay any taxes or anything like that to the city. However, the city has a pretty good working relationship with them, and they do help to fund, trucks. We just bought a brand new Pierce 100-foot Ascendant Tower lighter, and there was some, kick in from both institutions to help pay for that. So it's the housing idea is something I'm a big fan of, and the college, like I said, they own I don't know how many houses in town as it is for students to live in. So
Yeah.
it's that could definitely be an avenue that we approach as far as that partnership with the institutions.
Yeah, and start small. Start with four of them, or whatever. Find you four good candidates that you think you can bring up in a program like that are going to be successful, and you know, find the one whose daddy's a fireman, and all that kind of stuff. And man, that just the opportunity there is so great. That's something we wish we had.
Right.
We would be all over that. That would be a no brainer for us, because we don't, and that's something I never even asked you. Do you guys work schedules and staff on a schedule, or are y'all just true volunteer, going to
Yeah.
the station, catching the call?
Yeah. We're just true volunteer. We're very fortunate that we do get a decent budget from the city every year. So we don't have to focus, a whole lot on. Actually, we don't focus any on fundraising or anything. The city actually uh, has told us not to be fundraising, that it's their job to fund us, and they'll do so accordingly. Now, of course, we could always use more money, but we're very blessed to be funded in the way we are by the city.
Yeah, that's the same boat we're in. They tell us not to do it. We still do it, but we do it for other reasons, right? We do it for the community involvement. We do it for some of that stuff. We'll pick up the tab on something that the city wouldn't consider a, a a needed purchase.
Right.
We'll invest in some water rescue gear or something like that they're not super awesome about wanting to pay for. But yeah, we're in that same boat, and it's a great place to be. And there's not very many departments in that boat.
There's
I can
not.
promise you that that's a good place to be. And it sounds like you guys are kind of a sister department to us, or a brother department to us, in the kind of the way y'all are working there. Is that a mid mount ascendant that you got?
It is.
Yeah, we've got one of those. That's a heck of a rig.
Yeah, we were in Appleton. Myself and our training officer went back in February and done the final inspection, and we got it about 2 weeks later. It went to fire school to be showed off and then brought to our department.
Did you guys go to the power plant restaurant or the German restaurant?
What was the name? We went to the one. There was a guy playing a piano when we walked in. I can't remember the name of it now.
Well, a lot of people when they visit those restaurants may be a little foggy already. I have a I have a sneaky feeling that was the power plant.
I can't I can't comment on that, but it was a good trip.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. Uh,
Mike, we've kind of tossed just kind of a hand grenade in your lap with these. Does this sound like something that's not an answer, but because you won't know if it's an answer for a while. But have you guys had any discussion about trying to do anything like this?
Yeah, I mean, I was I've always been open to some kind of official, partnership or agreement or something with the college, because at the end of the day it's mutually beneficial. We get members, and they get students involved in the community they live in, and students from their own campus, helping to keep that campus safe. But I was at a loss on what direction do you even go with it, and ideas of reimbursement, or a housing agreement or something like that is wildly beneficial to consider to bring to the table, especially within the department, to make sure we're all on the same page, and before we start to approach those institutions.
yeah, and I think the trick with, because y'all are like us, you're responding to the station, taking the truck, going to the call. I think the ticket on that, get them close enough to the station where it's they can walk there basically. Get them close enough where you can keep an eye on them. Have them. I mean, heck, have them in the station if that's an option, and just kind of monitor them. But I've seen a lot of things that you wouldn't have thought to do 10 or 15 years ago. I'm seeing departments that are putting in gaming rooms
Yeah,
with like Xboxes and TVs and stuff to get the young guys to just hang out at the station and be part of it. And you're seeing stuff like that to where it's not the old social club and the speakeasy that was in the back of the station, 50 years ago,
right.
but it's a draw, and it's something to keep them engaged. And yeah, maybe they need to go ice some coolers and check a truck off while they're there too, but the rest of the time they're just there.
Right.
They're there, and they're ready to go.
Right. And the one thing I'm going to add to this real quick is that Mike, and you don't by any means need to answer this question. Historically, in my experience, particularly as chief, anyone that truly screwed up, and I mean, we're talking about major problems, major disciplinary issues. Were they older men that should have known better, or quite frankly, were they the young kids that screwed up? In my case, it was older men that should have known better. Don't get me wrong, the young guys screwed up, but my true nightmare headache problems have always been with older men. But it's the older men that stopped the young guys from being at the station playing video games. And it's like, why? What's so special about that? They're there. They're available for calls. And I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on that. And my tenure as chief, 3 years, Every major problem I've had has been from a grown ass man that should have known better. And don't get me wrong, I've had the face palm kind of head scratching moments with my kids, but not big deals. My big deals have always been from the grown men that stop my young guys from or complain or have issues or have really strong opinions about my young men at the department. And my young guys aren't the ones screwing up. Now, take that in a cup of coffee, what it's worth, throw each one over your shoulder. But it's 2 cents, to consider in that is the fact of the matter is we're in a different age. It's a new generation. And the fact of the matter is the only thing you care about as assistant chief is trying to figure out how the hell to get butts and chairs up there for as regularly as possible so they're available for calls.
Yeah.
And there's 10 different ways to skin that cat.
Yeah. Yeah, because it truly is just about, it's a numbers deal, right? If you're 22 guys like you are in mid-20s, just the rule of averages is you got 10 of them that are truly really really active, right?
Right.
And then you got about 12 of them that are the rest of the population, and there's probably 2 or 3 over there that are just not worth killing.
Yeah.
They're never there. You don't know why you're carrying them on the roster. And that's going to hold true. It's never going to be 100% participation at all times because it can't.
Right.
It can't be that. It is what it is at that point. But you spring that up to 35, and you've got 18 of them that are really active. Well, now you're in business. You've got a decent amount of folks, and
right.
My hat's off to y'all. Y'all are doing great over there. It sounds like, and really being proactive about this stuff, because so many of them, I hear it won't work here. We can't do that. We've tried this. That doesn't work. That I've heard all these excuses. I've got a good friend that's he's a assistant chief of a department, and he was telling me all his guys are old and they need young guys. And I said, well, you get you a junior program, you might find some young guys. Oh no, we can't do that. I'm not dealing with them. All right. Well, have you done anything to recruit some young guys? No, there's just not any of them.
We recruit in the newspaper.
That's what he told me. We run a deal in the newspaper about twice a year. I said, there's not one young person on this earth that's reading a newspaper.
Yeah,
they're all over 80.
I got pushback just today from one of my lieutenants because I tossed out the idea of a junior or an explorer program, and he was not a fan. And he's a young guy, but so we're not done discussing that yet. He doesn't know that, but
Yeah.
but it's, to me, to invest in them, a little bit while they're younger, and in 2 or 3 years they're old enough to put on the roster and start making runs. I think it's an investment worth making.
Mike, something to consider with the statement there. Let me tell you, I'm going to follow it with the serious part, but you'll find that it's actually the kink in the joke too. We have a juniors program. I emphatically hate our juniors program. 8 of my best members came from my juniors program.
Yeah.
That's the fact. Okay. I assure you, you will find all new creative ways to use a 4-letter F word. It's not fuel. Okay. With the juniors program. But at the end of the day, they do have a dividend and a payoff. And that program's exceedingly beneficial. I think the big part of it is that as chiefs, it's work. And as chiefs, the fact of the matter is we're kind of beyond the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, fire trucks. And, talking about calls in the sense of, I got to use a ladder, I got to spray water, I got to stretch a hose, I got to wear my gear. Meanwhile, you're thinking about trying to figure out how to hide their body under a bridge. And the fact of the matter is that they are wrapped up in this, and they're just kids, and they absolutely love this crap. And it's real simple to want to pull out a baby seal club and just kind of go whack-a-mole on them. And the juniors program, don't get me wrong, it's annoying, it's a lot of work, it's not a problem though. Now that said, will you have some absolute people that shouldn't be on your department? Oh yeah, no, that's going to happen, and you get rid of them. It's not that big of a deal. And yeah, you might have to deal with their parents too. That's infuriating. Deal with it. Just hurry up and deal with it, because at the end of the day, what are you trying to get? You are trying to get butts in the trucks. That's all that matters.
Right.
So,
And I would tell you, and this is just observation and experience with that, about 16 is about as young as you want to even think about letting somebody in there. You get them when they're 16, that gives you 2 years to get them some training to a level. When they turn 18, you can run them through some burns, finish up their training in a month's time, and hit the switch and go with them.
well, I can give you a real point of this. If you do drive away.
Yes.
Instead of them standing outside of the department waiting for mom or dad to pick them up. That may or may not be.
Yeah.
And no lights and no pager, no response. Like ours are only allowed to come to the station when there's other people there. And they can hang out, and they can do stuff, and they can ice coolers, and they can come to training, and they can do all that kind of stuff. But their involvement on a scene is going to be limited to, hey, get in this truck, you're going to go help roll hose when this thing's over.
Right.
Or observation, like you can stand right over there on the corner and you can watch.
Now, and I'll tell you another thing you'll have to deal with this, and I mean, I've had to tell a couple of 17-year-olds how the cow ate the cabbage. They're, again, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to tackle the world. And the fact of the matter is legally, they're a minor. And they don't like to hear that you can't do this because it's dangerous and you're not an adult. And they get to have an opinion on that, they think. And then you very promptly and immediately correct them on that. And you tell them, you're not. You're a child, you child. So you will follow these rules. If you don't, go pound sand. It already tells me that you can't be a part of this organization because you can't follow basic direction.
Right.
Like I said, that you'll get caught in those a couple of times. And like I said, that's kind of one of those infuriating things because you got to keep reminding yourself that you can't choke them to death or you'll go to federal prison. So, yeah, that's just kind of the backside of it. But I'd recommend you keep doing the good fight on trying to get someone to. Ideally, you have a 16 or 17-year-old that's ready to come in. That's kind of the best way to start a juniors program. And for anyone listening, if you're thinking about having a juniors program but you don't know where to start, go to the mvfc.org
Yes.
website, and they have a whole juniors program laid out there. It's like 40 pages or something absurd like that. They got everything you want.
Yeah, it gives you your SOPs and SOGs. Basically, everything's there. You can just cut and paste and adapt what you need to adapt for your deal. So we were talking about the Facebook and the older guys and the recruiting, because just judging on the youth of his department and the youth of our department, sometimes you need to find those older guys, right, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
And what we've learned and what we've seen is when you find some older guy, man, don't force them down the path. Make them do the training, right? They're going to train to the same level as everybody else, but don't hold them as a nozzle one forever. Get those older guys into the operators positions and let them drive and get them that training on top of it, because we've got old guys that they'll never drag a hose. Never going to happen.
No.
But they can drive and they can run a tanker and they can, pump an engine. They can do all that stuff pretty well. And that kind of balances out things and gets you that spectrum of age to where you're doing that. Because once you get all those fresh new faces in there, somebody's got to get them to the call.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone's got to drive the clown bus.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's kind of an important factor. We every now and then have to deal with this. Luckily, we are lucky. Our young guys, they want to fight fire. They want to do it. Only a handful of them are really interested in the flashing red lights in a truck and driving fast. And of course, they get sad and disappointed all the time because an old guy shows up and just face palms them into the back seat. But yeah, it's one of those things where you get, particularly the old guys, you get the right old guy there. Boy, he can really add a really fresh refinement and temperament to them young guys that are so full of piss and vinegar. He can do a good job of just mellowing them out while still allow them to run around like Wile E. Coyote on building an Acme rocket. And again, it's kind of a special person, but it's not, because those old guys, they also know what it was like to be those guys once when they were young. So yeah, trying to pick up a handful of them can be a real gem too. And it also, quite frankly, that's an easy argument to have when the old guy's technically the junior guy on seniority, and you just look at the 22-year-old kid and you're like, wait a minute, you want grandpa to go in there and work himself to a heart attack? Come on. Let's come back to reality here. Know your role. You are best as the firefighter, and he's easily trained as the engineer. That's the best way to work that. Mike, we could keep going down the rabbit hole here. What do you think, and what else do you have for us?
Well, as far as like the recruiting went, it was really, a focus on the college and the seminary, and how to, what routes we could take to kind of tap in to that. And, the ideas of the housing or the reimbursement, I think, is definitely something that, could be in our wheelhouse, and ideas I'm comfortable presenting to the department. And then,
Well, real quick, sorry to interrupt you there. One of the big benefits of that is it allows you to control the applicants coming into your organization. You have your own destiny on that. You're not relying on the school to say these people are deemed worthy.
Right.
You guys have the ability to interact directly with the student, set the terms of their joining, make sure their expectations are known up front and clear. Yes. Are you going to lose on one or two of them? Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about that. If you run a real diligent program on that, though, you're going to hit home runs a lot sooner, and you're going to strike out on that. Will you have strikeouts? Guaranteed.
Yeah.
The kicker is trying to catch it early.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think those are ideas that, I'm more than comfortable taking to, our officer group and having some discussions, and, ultimately figuring out the best plan for us to promote or approach the university. And, and see, kind of where they're at and where we can meet to develop something that's beneficial for both the department and the university.
Right.
Yeah, the bottom line is it helps all of them. I mean, they're paying insurance too. All that stuff helps.
Sure.
You know
Right.
that it's a win-win all the way around.
Period. Mike, what else you got for us?
That was my big question, was just the recruiting and things. I'm trying to explore some options of how to motivate guys, keep guys coming to training and things like that. Our members do receive pay. They're paid per call. Not enough to pay any bills, and we make sure they understand that when we hire them. But it's, I don't know. I don't always feel that trying to approach the city and throw more money at them is the best way to approach them. I think there's other avenues we can look into, as some type of like I heard you all mention, healthcare plans, and that pension program Texas have is impressive. Kentucky's lawmakers have shot ours down about 4 times now. So it's but finding some other means to offer guys something to both motivate them and, on top of that, to help recruit as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
getting them recruited is half the deal. You gotta try to keep them for some amount of time to make it worth it.
Right.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing is, once you got people, I mean, it's always, well, how do you keep them? Well, you got to get them first.
And I will tell you, just what I've seen in the volunteer fire service, when you change the motivation to dollars, and it's completely about dollars, boy, you're setting yourself up for a tough road, because
Yeah.
that there's plenty of other motivating ways there.
Yeah.
It's Matt says it's free, it's cool, and it's addictive. So you can capitalize on that. There's nothing wrong with indentured servitude.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally like smoking cigarettes in the 50s. It's free, it's cool, and it's addictive. How the hell are we struggling recruiting people?
Right.
And I mean, some departments figured it out, and others are dying the death of 10,000 paper cuts. I think you guys have figured it out for maintaining. You're trying to figure out how to sustain and grow.
Right.
And I would argue you have the hardest part done, sustainment. But trying to get over that hurdle of growth, that's a universal thing. And the fact of the matter is if you ever figure out a true answer to it, go ahead and tell me so I can write a book, and I'll give you $2 or $3 out of the 500 billion that I make. Yeah, it's truly being able to solve the recruitment thing is worth a lot of money.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's not just applicable to us. That's the Lions Club. That's the Elks. That's the VFW. That's the Quilting Club. It's on and on. It's worth a lot of money. All right. Well, I think what we'll do is, Mike, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. And as we wrap this up, you hang on for just a few minutes, and we'll close out with you after we do the end of our podcast, okay?
Okay.
All right, sir. Podcast notes. Boy, wow, I just whiffed on that hard. So, once again, if you're ever feeling feisty, reach out to us like Mike did on ittasteslikeburningcast at Gmail. We might even be able to entice you into our podcast like we did Mike. We tricked him and buffaloed him, and he had no clue what was going on. But now the cat's out of the bag. Everyone knows. So you can also find us on Twitter at itlbcast, the subreddit at itlbcast, and Patreon. We got stickers. And on Patreon, it's It Tastes Like Burning. This is Matt.
This is Jesse.
Appreciate it.